home because it's easier to do. Ooh. Excuse me. God damn. What
man,
a
you gotta get
hell
that
of a
checked
fucking
out.
way to get an intro. Woo. Oh, man. Bro, I just found a clip we have to play in the show.
Oh, yeah? All right.
Yep, I'm adding this clip to the show right now. It's a 3-minute clip. We're adding it.
Oh.
It's Dean Cain talking about Kavanaugh and his accuser, the Me Too stuff, with
nice.
Tucker
That'll be good.
Carlson. Dean Cain's an interesting one, man.
Yeah, I don't know a whole bunch.
He's the one that played Superman from Lois and Lane.
Dean Cain. Dean King. Martin King. Martin Scorsese. No, I know.
He was the host of the Ripley's Believe It or Not show. You remember that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, Sonny. I think, yeah, let's post. Let's get all the Facebook. Not Facebook. What the fuck is that my go-to thing? Gosh.
Let me just
What are you
post
talking
on
about?
I have no.
I'll just post on the real quick.
We've got the chat up and everything. Got Sonny with us. Already moderating and stuff. And I just retweeted that tweet.
What up, Sonny?
All right. Let's see here.
Oh, that's funny. How's the stream sound and everything on your end?
I hear, well, I mean, I hear you.
Oh, man. Okay, I got a cough.
No, I just checked it. It's good.
Should I mute this?
Sounds legit, sir.
No, I got myself. All right. Sorry, I had someone in my DMs messaging me. I may have found a new. You all know that my pastime is trolling on the internet.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
I try to keep my edge sharp. I like to pick a good debate over nothing and argue absurd points. So I'm currently scoping out a new place to hone my edge.
Huh, okay. Damn.
So we'll see how it goes. You know how I am. I like to find new things to play with. You gotta, if you want to be really good at debate, you have to actually debate.
Yeah, you gotta go into the trenches, man.
All right, so I am just about ready. I still got a little bit of tickle in my throat, but I got some water over here. I'll just mute myself if I have to cough.
Okay, that's cool.
I'm gonna try to log in my Twitch here in a minute, but I'm good to go. Otherwise, I think I can log into the YouTube on my actual phone now.
And you already added the clip to it? Or that initial one you were talking about?
Let me make sure I got it in the right spot. Thanks for reminding me. I was busy coughing. I got sidetracked. Oh, there it is. Dean Cain. Let's. Ooh. I bet you these ran the same day. Let me see here. No, these are different days. So yeah. Okay, I think yeah, let's do it this way. So we'll do it Nikki Haley, Dean Cain, Tucker, and then Trump.
Nikki Haley, Dean Cain, Tucker, and then Trump. That
does
kind of sounds like a basketball team.
Refresh your playlist and tell me if it looks that way on your. At the very bottom, it should be those four. It should be Nikki Haley, Dean Cain, Tucker, and then Trump.
Let's see. I see Nikki Haley, Tucker, then Trump.
Here, I'll wait. What?
Let me refresh again. Okay, Nikki, Tucker, Trump, and then Dean.
Trump and then Dean. Are you able to drag him up, Dean Cain?
Not I, said the fly, because I'm not the owner of this playlist.
Try refreshing it later, but we'll just go with what we got. We can always adjust the order as we go.
On here.
It's probably just taking a little while to update. I mean, let's be frank here. It is YouTube.
Where's our...
You know, so one thing that I didn't get a clip of that I was kind of bummed about, I didn't actually find a clip. I wasn't looking that hard though, so don't take pity on me.
No, I won't.
The South Korean president went to go meet Kim Jong-un at the fucking airport, personally.
Personally at the airport?
Yeah. Like, was on the tarmac when he landed. It's kind of cool. Tarmac. Yeah, they're just like, they're going to great lengths to like try to show each other favoritism. They're trying to really establish that, you know, that feeling, that bond. I think we're seeing the seeds of reunification right now.
I'd have to agree with you there, buddy.
Can I gush about something for a second?
Yeah.
Can I shill for something for just a split second?
Well, I mean, you'll be shilling to a live audience or whoever would be listening in on the other end.
Spider-Man for PS4 is really fun.
Dude, really? Is it?
It's really fun. Like, I'm not gonna talk like more about it because I'm not a video game reviewer or whatever, but like, I'll say this. I don't really like to pay for full price video games, and that was worth every penny, and I can't wait for the DLC to come out.
I'm gonna have to add that to our thing. Well, not to my thing, but, well, yeah, to my list of things that I want to try playing.
Yeah, did you ever play any of the Spider-Man games on PlayStation 2 that had the good web swinging, like, traversal?
Well, I mean, I did play Spider-Man for the GameCube, and it was just you know, the crappy GameCube game made for the movie, for the crappy movie.
PS2 Spider-Man was kind of dope.
It was fun,
it was pretty dope. But I was gonna say it's much improved. It's just fun.
Sonny, I really hope you're trolling.
You got what? Trolling what?
Is he the old school Spidey or the new black one?
Oh, okay. So here's the thing. So the Spider, like, there's different Spider-Man, different universes. Marvel has a multiverse, whatever. So there is one universe where there's a Mexican kid that's Spider-Man Morales. And actually, like, a lot of people hated him at first, but he wound up being a cool character. But there are Marvel does have a habit of, like, shoehorning diversity into comic book characters where they don't belong.
Oh man, dude, you're totally taking me the wrong way. I thought she was trolling. I thought she was talking about Venom, or
No,
Black
she's not
Carnage.
trolling, dude. She's
Oh
not.
damn.
She's not trolling.
Oh shit.
Like, because on the comic he's really dark. So if you don't know the comic, you think he's black. Like he looks black.
Oof.
But he's a neat character. But no, it's Peter Parker, and they do a really good job of Peter Parker being Spider-Man.
That's cool.
But you get all the costumes from the other Spider-Man, eras, so that's pretty cool. What else was I gonna? It's pretty neat. I will say this, since we're on the subject of comic books and this whole gender diversity thing, there is a lot of shoehorn stuff in Marvel. But the other thing that happens, which is a damn shame, is someone will take a storyline that's actually an interesting storyline and shellac it with feminist, like, fucking talking. Like, okay, so I'm gonna say something that's highly unpopular here in the community of right-wing comic book fans, which is I'm a really big fan of the female Thor stories, but not because I'm a fan of female Thor. I'm a fan of female Thor because the reason that female Thor has the hammer is because Thor no longer considers himself to be worthy. So he has to go on like a series of quests to become worthy again. It's like a big long story arc for him. And it's a really fucking fun set of comics, dude. So like
that actually sounds really interesting.
Right, but the problem with the female Thor comic is that while female Thor is an interesting character because it's his same love interest that it's always been. I forget her name right now, but she basically has cancer, and so she's going through chemo treatment. But every time she turns, does the Thor transformation, like her cancer's suppressed, but like the chemo is basically poison, right? So like her superpowers expel the chemo from her body. So like she doesn't have like cancer, right? She's healed while she's using the power, but then while she doesn't have the power like enabled, like equipped, or she's transformed or whatever, her cancer just spreads like wildfire. So like there's a definite end to her comic arc. But like while she's transformed, she says stuff like that's just like, stop oppressing me, evil man, and shit like that. I forget what the actual quotes are, but it's pretty cringy in some places, but otherwise it would be pretty great.
Just a little bit of cringe you gotta have in there.
Yeah.
You gotta have a little bit of cringe.
I mean, there's way worse comic examples. Like, I'm really not a fan of Riri Williams. The whole Ironheart thing bothers me a lot. I don't like that they're just like shoehorning characters into certain positions just so that they can.
Oh, why did they let one company purchase so many IPs?
Well, here's the thing. They're all their own IPs. Like, all these IPs at one point originated from Marvel.
Why did we let Disney take it over then? Who cares?
That is what it is. They're trying to I could go into a long explanation about this, but this isn't what our audience wants to hear about. They don't want to hear about me turning into a nerd. They want to hear us shit on reporters and talk about how politicians are failing at their jobs and see about, whether or not Trump is winning this week.
Hell yeah, man. Now you're talking my language.
Spoiler alert, he is.
Alright, so then, we're always one. Okay, yeah, we got this. So, let's say, should we get ourselves started, or,
yeah,
do we need a couple minutes?
I think we're ready to rock and roll. Are you ready? I'm ready. We're late anyway.
Oh yeah, I'm ready. We're way behind schedule. Alright, let's do our transitions here real quick. Get ourselves, get in and, goddamn, where'd that go? Alright, and all quiet on the Western Front. Let's try that one more time, because we didn't have full music. up at a good volume that I liked. So 3, 2,
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen.
3, 2, and 1. And howdy again there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Knead To Know podcast, broadcasting live on Sunday, September the 23rd, 2018. We've got Breadbox with us, we've got Solid Mag with us, and we got Political with us. But we're gonna we gotta jump straight into one thing that we just kind of really want to show you right now.
Oh, they look like they're having a nice dinner.
Oh yeah.
You know, when I first saw that box, I thought it was a watch box.
Really, a watch?
Yeah.
Oh man, he looks so happy. Like nobody's ever given him a gift like that before.
Check that out.
Oh. There's only 2 coins like that, and then next thing you know, we're gonna... Oh, look at that.
You know what Pawn with a Purpose said when I told him about this clip?
What did he say? We're gonna
He
see.
said, man, I wonder if those will be available for purchase.
Oh man, how could it not be?
Wait, is he Pawn without a purpose or Pawn with a purpose?
Pawn with a Purpose.
You know, like King's Knight's Pawn. Aha, that's a book that nobody's read. Oh, look at that. Okay, well... Man.
Commemorative. These guys are really getting friendly. I think they might actually have a professional working relationship that they enjoy, like, hanging out together.
Coming soon from the Franklin Mint. Your
right.
commemorative edition of the North Korean peace agreement, brought to you in coin form. Lovely.
Kind of neat. I bet you will be able to buy those. I mean, those are probably 1 ounce rounds, and you'll probably be able to pick them up. But I bet you they'll be expensive.
Oh yeah.
But it is what it is. Big news in North Korea this week. Big news.
The biggest.
So I mean, we talked a little bit about it before the show, before we went live. North Korea, okay. So I recently, I was on a Discord chat. I was talking to someone in the chat, and we were talking about red pilling people. And I was like, okay, how do you red pill? Like, will you debate them? Okay, well, what debate is more like a fight. Like, how do you convince someone to have your idea? How do you do that? Like, you just show them all the evidence, and they just figure it out, right?
Well, one would normally hope.
Well, see, my thought on this is that you sell them an idea. You have to sell them on it. You ever watch that movie? God, I can't remember what it's called. The guy says, "Sell the metal." They're like a hit squad that just sells cars.
A hit squad that sells cars.
It's like Waiting, but for car lots. It's a terrible movie. Anyway,
oh, God.
The idea here is that, we try to sell them on an idea, right? We tell them, North Korean reunification, North Korean peace is well on its way. That's, the official policy. That seems to be the trend. The left doesn't want to kind of accept it. So the main objection here is that, well, they're not doing anything, significant. So our ability to overcome that objection, throw a counterpoint that says, well, actually, we received these, unrepatriated war dead, and they not only allowed us to have them back, they allowed us to send, professionals to go examine the war dead to make sure they were actually American. Like, there were anthropologists and scientists that went out there to go test and sample the corpses that they picked up. Like, this isn't, they're not fucking around.
We can tell if you're an American from your bones, buddy.
Exactly. So, like, people are on the clock. Like, there's actual man hours being put into this. It's not, not real. But now, when you tell them that, they're like, oh, well, they still have their nukes and everything. Of course they still have. Then they say, well, and you'll say something like, well,
that ain't going to be the first thing they give up, man. That's not strategically correct. Doesn't work like that.
And one of the first things we showed was them blowing up one of their sites. And the first thing people say is they're like, well, they never had inspectors when they blew it up. Right?
Well, well, they've turned into an identical clone of South Korea, but yeah.
Well, so it looks like the way what's happening now is that North Korea is going to be dismantling their main plutonium refining facility. I guess it's like their main plutonium processing plant or some shit like that. Anyway, they're going to dismantle it, and they're supposedly going to allow outside inspectors to come in and oversee the process, or at least inspect the area so that they can make sure it's properly disposed of.
All right. Let's see
So,
what we have to say about that then. Should we, or?
What you got, political?
I don't got much, man. My head is pounding still.
One of those long nights?
Yes, there way too much alcohol.
Well, while you're recovering, let's watch.
Calm down. Joining me now is Gordon Chang, columnist for the Daily Beast, who's written extensively on the region. Gordon, what do you think of today's announcement from Korea and North Korea? And what do you think of what the president just said right there?
Well, what the president said about, there was going to be war before he took over, that's clearly not right. The Obama administration had a policy of strategic patience to try to wait the North Koreans out, so there really was no tension. We're talking about war on the Korean Peninsula because of fire and fury and some of the other things the president said, which were intended to get the North Koreans to the bargaining table. But, the threat of war was when Trump took office.
What do you think of the announcement from North Korea that they're willing to do all these things, which sound very good, in exchange for concessions from the U.S.?
Well, the Kim family and progressive governments in South Korea are very good at creating euphoria. The problem, though, is that they've not been able to sustain it over a long period. And part of it is because the Kim family has really not been able to deal with the international community in good faith, including the South Koreans. So there was some progress. There were some gestures. That's a good thing, but they weren't what we really wanted to hear.
But what about these specific, not promise or pledge to dismantle a complex that enriches the bulk of its uranium? I mean, that seems like a big deal, or do you disagree?
Oh, no, clearly. The promise to dismantle Yongbin is really critical because that's the only place where they can process plutonium, which is fissile material for nuclear weapons. But they said, look, we need reciprocal concessions from the U.S., and they didn't specify what they are. We don't know what they are, probably relief from sanctions, but it's going to be big. And it's going to be big because, as you say, taking apart Yongbin is a really important item on the U.S. wish list.
How would we be sure that they were actually doing it, though? Would they be allowing in monitors to check to see if that was really happening?
Well, with Yongbin, clearly there would have to be either U.S. or international Atomic Energy Agency inspectors, largely because the UN has to have a role in this.
What about the halt in the missile tests? Do they need to be doing missile tests any longer?
No, at least not now. And the reason is that they've got a lot of material, a lot of telemetry from all those series of tests. Also, the missiles that they've been testing are not really that sophisticated. They're big and powerful, but other countries have them. And so the North Koreans can get this information from other places.
And the president said we'll see if he's going to meet with Kim Jong-un again. Do you believe that means it's more likely that they will have a second summit?
I think that they will, Katie, and the reason is Kim clearly wants the summit. He said that in that letter to President Trump. President Trump wants to have a summit, so eventually it's going to occur. It may not occur this month, which some people have been speculating about, in New York at the UN General Assembly meeting, but I think that it will occur at least a couple months down the road.
So are things working so far?
Things are working in a sense. President Trump, before he went to Singapore for the summit with Kim Jong-un, said he was going to give the North Koreans this one-shot opportunity to do the right thing. And so there's been a lot less U.S. pressure on the North Koreans. We've not enforcing sanctions with the same vigor. We've not been doing a lot of other things. And the question is whether Kim will respond. And a lot of people, including me, are skeptical. But, at least people can say that things are going in the right direction.
Nikki Haley accused Russia of subverting those sanctions that we've imposed on North Korea. How is Russia, and for that matter China, affecting affecting the negotiations and affecting U.S. policy towards North Korea?
They're affecting the negotiations by putting a lot of money into Kim Jong-un's coffers. Not as much as he wants, but certainly as much as he needs. And they've been doing that by buying North Korean coal, which is a violation of UN sanctions. China's been doing that. Russia has been having these ship-to-ship transfers on the high seas, also a violation of UN sanctions. And matter of fact, you know, Russia and China have been openly violating these rules, and the South Koreans say, oh, look, we'll violate them too, which is what they did just a few days ago with opening up that liaison office.
What about the tariffs and the trade war that's happening between the U.S. and China? How is that affecting North Korea policy?
Well, I think, you know, certainly Xi Jinping, the Chinese ruler, is not in the mood to help President Trump or the United States on tariffs. But I think that we've got to impose these tariffs because the Chinese have been stealing hundreds of billions of dollars of U.S. intellectual property each year. And we don't have a choice. We got to deal with the Chinese on North Korea, and we got to deal with them on tariffs. And unfortunately, I don't think we have that luxury to say, oh, we'll just deal on one issue.
Gordon Chang, good to see you. But I guess when we talk, usually it's because something terrible is happening.
I'll try not to come around again.
Gordon Chang, thank you very much.
Thanks, Gordon Chang.
Narrative being, is Trump able to keep his leverage over North Korea with everyone undermining sanctions?
Yeah, he will.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I am a little concerned about the South Korean president. A little bit. The guy needs to stay in his lane. But
I don't know, man. We're freaking allies with South Korea and everything. I mean, come on. We had the demilitarized zone there. I mean,
yeah, I suppose we might just be looking the other way on this one. Who knows what's going on behind closed doors, man?
Mm-hmm.
It could be all part of the plan. Never know. Never know.
Smoke and mirrors.
What plan, Mr. President? What plan?
Oh, calm before the storm. All right. So let's go ahead and check out this 2-minute segment from ABC about the denuclearization process. Go ahead and make some comments about that, and then we can move on to our next segment.
All right.
Let's turn to the Supreme Court battle still. The president tweeting overnight, the Supreme Court is one of the main reasons I got elected president. I hope Republican voters and others are watching and studying the Democrats' playbook. He is now also closely monitoring breaking developments overnight in North Korea. Kim Jong-un making new promises of denuclearization during a summit between the North and the South. The president calling the news very exciting. Let's bring in Chief White House correspondent John Carl at the White House. John, so far, few details on how exactly the North will denuclearize.
There are few details, Cecilia, but this does look like a significant development. The North Koreans have agreed to dismantle a missile test facility and, most importantly, have agreed to do that in the presence of international inspectors. And in a vivid display of the thaw between North and South Korea, the two Korean leaders say they will submit a joint bid to co-host the 2032 Olympics.
How about that?
They say Kim Jong-un has said that he will visit Seoul. No North Korean leader has ever done that. In terms of denuclearization, the North Koreans are also saying they will dismantle a nuclear test facility, but they are demanding reciprocal measures by the United States. It's unclear what that means. So the bottom line here, that we are a long way from denuclearization, but this does look like a step in the right direction.
Okay, John, one other quick headline. The president also heads to the disaster zone today to survey the damage from Hurricane Florence.
He's going to visit a Marine Corps base near Wilmington.
Oh. I need a meme that says Kabuki Theater intensifies at the bottom.
It's just getting crazier and crazier.
I know, right? It's just like, now they just have to admit, they're like, okay, so things are going well. Shit.
Oh, fuck, man. There's gonna be peace. Damn.
Man, we can't get on this.
Damn it, man. Oh, man, we really wanted there to be nuclear war and death and all that crap. Oh.
So, did you guys hear about the terror attack that happened in Iran?
Yes.
Yes. Wait, but
So,
In the terror.
Have you heard
in the
about?
terror, what? Wait, what? What was that there? You cut?
I had a thing in my throat. I was trying to say Iran, but I just couldn't. I was tripping over the T.
Man, you got to be careful, man, with those freaking frogs in your throat, dude. You don't want to have too many frogs in your throat.
Oh man. All right, so.
Sorry, yeah, I'm just fucking with you, man. Just cringing the fuck out of you, man.
Anyway, Iran seems to think that we might be involved in a terror attack. So let's go ahead and take a look at what their news has to say.
Sounds like conspiracy.
Or rather, excuse me, what Euronews has to say about their situation.
Gunmen opened fire on a military parade in southwestern Iran, killing at least 24 people. The victims included women and children who'd come to watch, as well as members of the Revolutionary Guard. More than 60 people were wounded. Soldiers ran for cover as shots rang out. A journalist was among those killed. State media said 4 militants carried out the attack in the city of Ahvaz. 2 were killed and the others were arrested. It was one of the worst ever attacks on Iran's elite military force. The gunmen targeted a podium where Iranian officials were gathered to watch an annual event marking the start of the 8-year war with Iraq in the 1980s. Similar parades were taking place around the country, including the capital Tehran. Ahvaz is in the centre of Khuzestan province, where there have been sporadic protests by the Arab minority in mainly Shiite Iran. Foreign Minister Javad Zarif said the assault was the handiwork of what he called regional terror sponsors.
Secretary of State.
How about that?
Oh, man.
Pretty brutal, man. I love those Euronews guys because they're basically just very straightforward. It's very interesting. It's like getting your news from a Borg collective. They're just devoid of emotion.
Here's what happened. This is how many people died. This is what occurred today in this area of the place. Thank you.
The official story is as follows: in transmission shutdown. Just like ridiculous, but I love them because they're they're just very to the point. I just like how concise it is. Anyway, I'm going to stop gushing about retard MSM. Next clip that we have is a little bit different. We're going to kind of switch gears. Marco Rubio has a bone to pick with John Kerry, and he's going to bark up the DOJ's tree to try to get it taken care of.
Secretary of State Mike Pompeo tearing into John Kerry for meeting with Iranian officials and undermining the Trump administration.
Secretary Kerry can't seem to get off the stage. Stop it. Let it go. You had your day. We think you fundamentally got it wrong with Iran, and we're trying to make it right for America.
Right. Our next guest is taking a step further, sending a letter to the DOJ asking them to investigate whether John Kerry violated federal law. Joining us now is Senator Marco Rubio, Foreign Relations Committee. Senator, what makes you, I think it's inappropriate, it seems, especially because he has an anti-Trump agenda and he makes it clear on every appearance he makes. But what makes you think it might be breaching the law?
The words in the law. There's a thing called the Logan Act. I kind of took quick notes again this morning to make sure I had read it entirely and appropriately because I wanted to bullet point it for you. And basically what it says in the Logan Act is if there's a U.S. citizen that without the authority of the U.S. government is talking to a foreign government with the intent of influencing the conduct of that government or with the intent to defeat a measure of the U.S. government, the Logan Act makes that illegal. Now, we know for a fact, for example, and that Kerry has said himself he's talked to the foreign minister of Iran 3 or 4 times. We've seen reporting that he's been calling foreign heads of state, and we have seen reporting that he has been talking to foreign heads of state and telling them to wait Trump out when it comes to the Iran deal. So when you apply the things that have been reported in the media that we're told we should always believe, and you apply those facts, according to the media, to what we know the
Well,
law is,
that's why
that merits
Trump's
an
showing up by
investigation
himself
because
to
this
do
is
the
someone
deal.
who is operating without the authority of the government. He's not a member of Congress. He's not a senator. And he most certainly has not been deputized by the Trump administration to conduct these talks and try to undermine U.S. policy.
Would it be hard to prove intent? You'd have to prove that he was trying to influence them.
Well, obviously, you know, I don't think that he would necessarily deny it. In fact, it seems like he's been bragging about it. He thinks he's doing a heroic thing, but he's violating the law if that's what he's doing. So ultimately, this needs to be looked at because not only should there be consequences if he's in fact done it,
we're going to get rid of
the
him.
precedent that this sets is disturbing. You cannot here on moving forward have in the future Mike Pompeo, for example, undermining a Democratic president's foreign policy without authority. So these are the kinds of things that need to be dealt with because not just what happened, but the precedent it sets for the future.
Now, keep in mind, he did bring this up this was brought up to him last night, and he said, well, listen, Henry Kissinger has met with every world leader for the last 2 or 3 decades. What's your answer to that?
Right.
Well, no one said it's not illegal to meet with heads of state from other countries. What is illegal is a concerted effort to use that to undermine the foreign policy of the United States. If he is in fact meeting with these leaders and working with them and others to figure out how to undermine U.S. foreign policy or encouraging them to wait out the United States and so forth, then he's violating the Logan Act. So meeting is one thing, carrying out with the intent of undermining U.S. foreign policy, according to the Logan Act, that's a violation of the law.
And the last famous American who is accused of violating the Logan Act, Mike Flynn. What happened to him? Meanwhile, Senator, let's talk a little bit about this. It sounds as if Charles Grassley has given Dr. Christine Ford's lawyers until tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning to let them know whether or not she's going to show up to testify.
We don't need to talk about that yet. We got more shit going on than that. Almost there. Okay, so we're not out of the Middle East yet. I know I teased the great rolling hills and purple mountains and blue-green ocean,
poppy fields,
green rolling but no, you go back. You go back to the Middle East. We'll leave you there. You have only bottled water, and you stay here for whole segment. This is where you belong.
I'll say.
With that in mind, let's talk about the food crisis in Yemen, shall we?
Food crisis in Yemen.
The World Food Programme in Yemen is warning that the war-torn country's food crisis will be made much worse if the port of Hodeida is damaged or destroyed. The UN organisation imports over half of all aid to Yemen through the port and says that while there are alternatives, getting food to where it's needed would be so much more difficult.
While we're not sure what will happen in the future, we are appealing to protect infrastructure, critical infrastructure such as the ports, such as the store warehouses, such as the cranes,
and our tools,
such as
our vehicles,
the mills.
Houthi rebels have occupied Hodeida and its ports since October 2014, but the Yemeni government and a Saudi Arabia-led military coalition are trying to take it back.
I haven't really cited their stuff before, but they're pretty decent.
Loading all those bags onto frickin'...
Oh, the bags. Dude, how about that, though? Yemen it just doesn't stop for them, dude.
Just keeps getting frickin' worse and worse, man.
I love how the solution is just don't shoot the important building. It's like, hey guys, no more total war.
Oh god.
Play by the rules. God. The rules of war are there so that the people that break them become victors. They're a great filter. It's a problem. I'm not making an ethical argument right now. I'm just making a evolutionary argument, a very Darwinian argument, saying the less rules you have inhibiting you, the more adaptable you become.
The more free you'll be able to be.
Exactly. All right, so we're still in the Middle East. Last week we covered things were coming to a head around this province in Syria called Idlib. There was like a big offensive going on there. People were planning a huge battle. Well, the battle happened, and basically what we've got going on right now is Turkey and Russia and Syria all kind of came together and said, we're going to have a ceasefire. And when we have this ceasefire, we're going to have a complete demilitarized zone. Okay. So they're setting up a DMZ around Idlib right now. So that's where we're at.
Raising their voices.
Yeah.
We don't want the president. We don't want Bashar. Fall Bashar.
Who knows what this guy is saying?
Idlib is now one of the last rebel-held areas in Syria. A recent regime push into this province sparked fears of a possible humanitarian disaster. But a deal between Russia and Turkey to impose a demilitarized zone has meant, for now, the fighting here has mostly stopped. TRT World got access on the ground to find out how people feel about this uneasy truce.
This is good. It has protected this area. This has protected our children. We have been unable to sleep at night. We can hear the planes overhead. We are scared for our children.
Holding posters and banners and photos of loved ones. Those killed, missing, detained by the regime. In Idlib, protests are once again happening every week.
We are meeting to show that we are determined in our position to bring an end to the regime from the first day that we started protesting. Despite all the rockets and shelling, we are still determined and steadfast.
But many different armed opposition groups control the ground here, and part of the deal includes heavy weapons and certain factions being removed from a 20-kilometre zone along Idlib's border. A big challenge, one that many people here say is near impossible.
We are all one hand and we are all brothers. There is no difference. We do not deny that there are bad apples from both sides who are hurting the people. We want freedom and democracy and peace to all Syrians wherever they are. We will not remain silent. We will continue until the murderous regime has fallen, which is trying to separate us as a single unified Syrian people.
The regime flag burns.
Sounds familiar?
Kind of damning for Bashar.
Take a listen to the crowds behind me here in the centre of Idlib. Chanting and cheering. 8 years into this war and people are still taking to the streets here in Idlib in Syria to protest the regime.
Wow.
For now, in these remaining parts of Syria under opposition control, the flag of the revolution still flies. Sarah Firth, TRT World, Idlib, Syria.
We don't usually get on the ground, perspectives on stuff like that. So I kind of thought maybe we would take a look. It's kind of neat to see what the people that are there think.
Yeah, they're pretty much fuck Bashar al-Assad.
Yeah, pretty much. It's kind of funny. Okay, so the next video is a Fox News clip where they talk about the demilitarized zone.
Idlib was the last rebel-held bastion, is the last rebel-held bastion in the country, and if the Syrian government took it, it would mean effectively total victory for them in the country. But still, these big questions before this offensive is definitely called off. What happens to the heavy weaponry there? What happens to the fighters? All along, President Assad has said that he is set on retaking all of Syria, and Idlib is strategically vital to them as it links major cities and the coast, meaning it is likely that Assad will want to take it back. But for the moment, the residents in Idlib are safe. They do not have to flee towards Turkey, and it was feared maybe 800,000 would end up heading north towards the border. And the government offensive, for now, that so many people feared, has been put on hold. And again, it's interesting to see how it's other countries who are deciding the fate of Syria, Turkey and Russia, meeting to try and come to divide it, in a sense, divide this northern part. Crucial also that it is not the US taking a role in this. Although they do have influence in the northeast and the south, this decision made entirely by Turkey and Russia.
How about that? Well,
like, where are we seeing these kinds of things? Ugh. Also happen.
I wish, that was the only exciting thing that was going on in the region. But, as you can see, open frame for the new video, Putin has got to address an Israeli fuck up.
Yeah, that's what we're going to call it, I guess.
The understatement.
Israeli fuck up. I have no idea what we're talking about on this one, so I'm going to learn something today, guys.
Putin says jet downing is accidental as Israel blames Syria.
Finger pointing all around after Russian reconnaissance plane is shot down in Syria. Moscow blames Israel for the accident, accusing officials of providing insufficient warning.
We view Israel's provocative actions as hostile. Following the irresponsible actions of the Israeli military, 15 Russian soldiers were killed. This is absolutely not in keeping with the spirit of the Russian-Israeli partnership. We reserve the right to an adequate response.
The Russian plane was shot down by Syrian missiles over the Mediterranean Sea, not far from its airbase. The missiles were reportedly targeting Israeli fighter jets in the area, who were carrying out an attack on Syrian military facilities in Latakia. Israel has confirmed it targeted facilities that are used to transfer weapons to Hezbollah in Lebanon, but officials have squarely placed the blame on Syria.
Israel expresses sorrow for the death of the aircrew members of the Russian plane that was down tonight due to Syrian anti-aircraft fire. Israel holds the Assad regime, whose military shot down the Russian plane, fully responsible for this incident.
Israeli officials say the Syrian military failed to ensure no Russian planes were in the air and that its anti-aircraft missiles were inaccurate and extensive. Israel's deputy ambassador was summoned to Russia's foreign ministry. Seeking to defuse tensions, Russian President Vladimir Putin said the shooting down of its plane was the result of a chain of tragic accidental circumstances and that Moscow needs to investigate the incident further.
How about that? Quite graceful for Putin. Great feared bear.
Huh. That's...
I don't know. Kind of crazy, right? Did you understand how that went down?
Well, I mean, yeah, but do you want to go over it?
Okay, so basically, you've got Israeli aircraft in the area. They find a Russian spy plane. They're not supposed to be in the area. They trigger AA. And then one of the Israeli aircraft uses the Russian spy plane as cover. Russian spy plane takes fire. Israelis blame the Syrians. Syrians and Russians blame the Israelis.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, that's how it goes down. And they're doing it because they have our tech. Like, they're able to do that because they have, like, the best shit in the world, which is our shit.
That kind of just seems like a happening of war to me.
Yeah.
Just like something that would be a risk. I mean, heck, you're being shot at or whatever. I mean,
but we're not supposed to be in direct warfare, so we got to tread lightly. If Israel starts shooting actively, if Israel enters a hot conflict with Russia, we enter a hot conflict.
Well, fuck.
Yeah. So they need to cool their fucking jets.
Mm-hmm.
Literally. But I'm
not stressed though. They'll get whipped into shape. We already know it.
Yep.
All right.
So we don't usually look at the media of other countries, But flip on subtitles, please, and let's take a look at this video with this Russian general.
Hang on a second.
If you're listening, I'm sorry. I'm about to get screwed.
One quick second. Having to get this set up for us.
Should be like the auto-generated subtitles.
No, that automatically went to Russian.
Really?
Yeah. All right, let's
set it to English.
I did. Let's see how this.
Oh, baller.
Let's see how well this works, you guys. Let's see YouTube in action.
В ведомстве сегодня детально изучили обстоятельства гибели в Сирии российского Ил-20.
Okay, hang on. No, you guys can't even freaking see that. I'll fix that really quick. Apologize for that.
Oh, the video itself has English subtitles.
So then, is what I'm doing here just all for nothing?
Yeah, I thought I had my subtitles set on. Go ahead and turn it off.
God damn it, Breadbox.
Hit me with the stupid stick later.
Okay, later.
В ведомстве сегодня детально изучили обстоятельства гибели в Сирии российского Ил-20 17.
I just want to clarify. Stupid stick does not mean penis.
Thank you for having to clarify that. I did not think that, but thank you.
Continue.
Сентября и уверены в том, что израильский летчик, совершивший провокационный маневр сближения, знал, что Ил окажется приоритетной целью для сирийских ПВО. Причиной трагедии стала по меньшей мере преступная халатность израильских военных. Вся хронология событий, которая была озвучена сегодня в материале Антона Подковенко.
Лаконично и предельно наглядно Минобороны России расставляет точки в трагической истории с самолетом Ил-20. Поминутная хронология, точные данные радаров, как все было вечером 17 сентября. Российский самолет отслеживал обстановку в Идлибской зоне деэскалации. 4 израильских F-16 вылетели в район западней Латакии, и в 21:39 представитель ВВС Израиля оповестил российскую сторону по спецканалу, что они будут бить по промышленным объектам на севере Сирии. И F-16 тут же сбросили авиабомбы. Через минуту после оповещения. Это само по себе нарушение российско-израильских договоренностей от 2015 года. Вдобавок ударили не туда, куда сказали.
Как вы видите на карте, удары израильских ВВС наносились не в северной части Сирийской Арабской Республики, а в районе Латаки, которая является западной провинцией. Введение в заблуждение израильских офицеров относительно района нанесения ударов истребителями не позволило вывести российский самолет Ил-20 в безопасный район.
Израильтяне ударили в 21:40. Сирийцы ответили зенитными ракетами в 21:51. F-16 отошли западнее побережья Сирии и поставили радиоэлектронные помехи. Затем один из них начал маневр к побережью. Это было в 21:59.
В этот период самолет Ил-20, совершавший разворот для захода на посадку на аэродром Кюмим, оказался на направлении огня сирийских средств ПВО по израильским самолетам. Особо подчеркну, что, наблюдая российский Ил-20, израильские истребители прикрылись им от зенитных ракет, продолжая маневрировать в данном районе. В 22 часа 03 минуты сирийская зенитная ракета поразила более крупную и ближнюю цель самолет Ил-20.
Израильские пилоты не могли не понимать, что Ил-20 больше, что он станет предпочтительной целью для сирийской ракеты.
Представленные объективные данные свидетельствуют, что действия израильских летчиков-истребителей, приведшие к гибели 15 российских военнослужащих, говорят или о их непрофессионализме, или как минимум о преступной халатности. Поэтому считаем, что вина за трагедию с российским самолетом Ил-20 целиком лежит именно на военно-воздушных силах Израиля и тех, кто принимал решения о такого рода деятельности.
Вдобавок F-16 маневрировали там, где проходят трассы захода на посадку не только военных, но и гражданских самолетов на Хмеймим, а значит, была прямая угроза жизням пассажиров.
Вы знаете, что у нас действует канал коммуникации для предотвращения инцидентов в воздухе, где стороны заблаговременно оповещают друг друга о планах применения авиации в различных районах Сирии. Во время действия договоренности командному центру ВВС Израиля было направлено 310 уведомлений о действиях ВКС России вблизи израильской территории. Вместе с тем, израильская сторона давала уведомления лишь 25 раз, только непосредственно перед самими ударами.
Все это выглядит как крайне неблагодарный ответ на все то, что Россия сделала для Израиля в последнее время. По просьбе Иерусалима Москва договорилась с Тегераном, чтобы проиранские отряды Хизбаллы и корпуса стражи исламской революции были отведены от голландских высот на восток Сирии почти на 150 километров и не могли наносить ракетные удары по Израилю. В результате действий российской стороны за патрулирование особо сложного района в Сирии смогли взяться миротворцы ООН.
Со 2 августа 2018 года, после 6-летнего перерыва, организовано патрулирование района разделения на голландских высотах миротворческим контингентом ООН под боевым прикрытием российской военной полиции. Это позволило полностью исключить обстрелы израильской территории со стороны голландских высот.
В 2010-м Россия по просьбе израильской стороны отказалась от контракта с Дамаском по поставкам в Сирию систем С-300 ПМУ-2 «Фаворит».
Мы получили предоплату $400 миллионов. Но затем, по просьбе израильской стороны, которая высказала свои озабоченности тем, что такая зенитно-ракетная система по сути, нивелирует военно-воздушный потенциал Израиля, мы сначала приостановили выполнение этого контракта, а затем и прекратили его действие и вернули все $400 миллионов Сирийской Арабской Республики.
Была еще такая история. Израильтяне попросили нас помочь вернуть на родину останки своих военных, которые погибли в Сирии. Дали координаты, где они предположительно были захоронены, а это оказалась зона под контролем запрещенной в России ИГИЛ. Только начали изымать останки, начался бой, был ранен российский военнослужащий.
Россия очень важный союзник Израиля. Израильтянам нужно, чтобы Россия разрешала им наносить удары по иранским целям и Хизбалле на территории Сирии. Если иранцам позволить размещать ракеты вблизи израильской границы, они могут нанести серьезный урон стране. Поэтому так важны отношения с Россией. И теперь Израиль будет делать все возможное, чтобы не допустить повторения трагического инцидента.
Но пока ясно одно. Действия израильских ВВС в отношении российского Ил-20 выходят за рамки цивилизованных отношений между странами. И военные в Иерусалиме либо не ценят отношения с Москвой, либо не контролируют своих командиров, понимавших, что их действия приведут к трагедии. Антон Подковенко, Дмитрий Найда, Вести.
Are taking, doing cowboy deployments.
That was a lot of wow.
A lot of information.
That was a whole lot of information. Yeah.
You just got immersed.
Yeah, that was
in the social and civil machine of the Russian Federation.
That was extremely interesting. That was like. I don't know. I'm just so used to like such a short, tiny little, clip, just a short, tiny little, bite-sized bits and pieces of information, just all scattered about throughout the day. But then again, of course, that's an actual freaking report that these people are actually doing there. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
So, have you paid attention to Brexit lately?
No, actually, I haven't.
Not really, honestly. A little bit, but not too much.
Well, they got offered a shit deal by the EU, so Theresa May has a retort.
Shit deal EU retort. Let's see.
While both sides want a deal, we have to face up to the fact that, despite the progress we have made, there are two big issues where we remain a long way apart. The first is our economic relationship after we have left. Here, the EU is still only offering us two options. The first option would involve the UK staying in the European Economic Area and a customs union with the EU. In plain English, this would mean we'd still have to abide by all the EU rules. Uncontrolled immigration from the EU would continue, and we couldn't do trade deals we want with other countries. That would make a mockery of the referendum we had 2 years ago. The second option would be a basic free trade agreement for Great Britain that would introduce checks at the Great Britain-EU border. But even worse, Northern Ireland would effectively remain in the customs union and parts of the single market, permanently separated economically from the rest of the UK by a border down the Irish Sea. Parliament has already unanimously rejected this idea. Creating any form of customs border between Northern Ireland and the rest of the UK would not respect that Northern Ireland is an integral part of the United Kingdom, in line with the principle of consent as set out clearly in the Belfast Good Friday Agreement. It is something I will never agree to. Indeed, in my judgment, it is something no British Prime Minister would ever agree to. If the EU believe I will, they are making a fundamental mistake. Anything which fails to respect the referendum or which effectively divides our country in two would be a bad deal. And I have always said, no deal is better than a bad deal. But I have also been clear that the best outcome is for the UK to leave with a deal. That is why, following months of intensive work and detailed discussions, we proposed a third option for our future economic relationship based on the frictionless trade in goods. That is the best way to protect jobs here and in the EU and to avoid a hard border between Ireland and Northern Ireland, while respecting the referendum result and the integrity of the United Kingdom. Yesterday, Donald Tusk said our proposals would undermine the single market. He didn't explain how in any detail or make any counter-proposal. So we are at an impasse. The second issue is connected to the first. We both agree that the withdrawal agreement needs to include a backstop to ensure that if there's a delay in implementing our new relationship, there still won't be a hard border between Ireland and Northern Ireland. But the EU is proposing to achieve this by effectively keeping Northern Ireland in the customs union. As I have already said, that is unacceptable. We will never agree to it. It would mean breaking up our country. We will set out our alternative that preserves the integrity of the UK, and it will be in line with the commitments we made back in December, including the commitment that no new regulatory barriers should be created between Northern Ireland and the rest of the UK unless the Northern Ireland Executive and Assembly agree. As I told EU leaders, neither side should demand the unacceptable of the other. We cannot accept anything that threatens the integrity of our union, just as they cannot accept anything that threatens the integrity of theirs. We cannot accept anything that does not respect the result of the referendum, just as they cannot accept anything that is not in the interests of their citizens. Throughout this process, I have treated the EU with nothing but respect. The UK expects the same. A good relationship at the end of this process depends on it. At this late stage in the negotiations, it is not acceptable to simply reject the other side's proposals without a detailed explanation and counter-proposals. So we now need to hear from the EU what the real issues are and what their alternative is so that we can discuss them. Until we do, we cannot make progress. In the meantime, we must and will continue the work of preparing ourselves for no deal. In particular, I want to clarify our approach to two issues. First, there are over 3 million EU citizens living in the UK who will be understandably worried about what the outcome of yesterday's summit means for their future. I want to be clear with you that even in the event of no deal, your rights will be protected. You are our friends, our neighbours, our colleagues. We want you to stay. Second, I want to reassure the people of Northern Ireland that in the event of no deal, we will do everything in our power to prevent a return to a hard border. Let me also say this. The referendum was the largest democratic exercise this country has ever undergone. To deny its legitimacy or frustrate its result threatens public trust in our democracy. That is why, for over 2 years, I have worked day and night to deliver a deal that sees the UK leave the EU. I have worked to bring people with me, even when that has not always seemed possible. No one wants a good deal more than me, but the EU should be clear. I will not overturn the result of the referendum, nor will I break up my country. We need serious engagement on resolving the 2 big problems in the negotiations. And we stand ready.
She's a good speaker.
Damn.
She's really got that
that was really
that
good.
Fucking Mary Poppins thing down. So
somebody must have had a talk with her.
Theresa May normally disappoint.
Definitely.
She's starting to come around a little bit. So we'll see if she makes good on what she says. But if she makes good, she might be the best prime minister they've had in a long time. So
it wasn't too long ago. There was a bunch of people flipping their shit because she was going halfsies on Brexit, and now she seems like she's doing her job.
Yeah.
Oh, I wonder what happened to make her change her mind.
I think I have an idea about what might have reinforced her opinion on Brexit. Maybe a little bit. 2 years is a long time. A lot of people forget what they voted for. It takes a while to come into effect. People get pissed off. They try to memory hold the law. One man thinks that's bullshit. So he's making sure people don't forget. Do you know who that man is?
Dun, 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 dun. It is Michael Farage.
We need our politicians to understand we have not changed our minds. We want Brexit.
He's back. Nigel Farage out in Lancashire today, addressing the odd shopper and 1 or 2 dogs.
We'll be back on the road. We're back campaigning. Didn't want to.
This cross-party Leave Means Leave campaign wants the public to lobby their MPs to stand firm on Brexit.
We persuaded the country to vote for Brexit, and the politicians aren't delivering
So what we're seeing here is a new British political campaign.
We want to give them a hard time.
So did you vote for Brexit then?
I'm not saying anything. I'm not.
Sounds like you're a Remainer.
We saw.
Would you like to have a second referendum?
I personally would, yeah.
Why is that?
I just think we need a second one, personally.
Well, they may force it upon us. I hope they don't.
Because both sides in the campaign was a bit of a mess, wasn't it? There was a bit of lies and a little bit of things going on.
Well, you could argue that for every election that's ever been fought.
So you're sort of
hold on.
He's got a nice face, hasn't he?
So you still want to leave the European Union, do you?
Yeah.
And how do you think Mrs May's handling it?
I watch my French in the moment, yeah.
I agree with him. I think it's time we come out of here and ruled our own country.
And how do you think Theresa May's performing?
Well, I think leave her alone and let her get on with the job.
Do you think she will get the job done, do you?
Don't keep pulling it pieces. Be at back of it and back her up. And let her get on with the job.
And why do you think we should leave?
I didn't vote to leave.
You didn't?
No.
And so you've changed your mind, have you?
No, I've just gone with the majority. I've not changed my mind, but the people voted to leave, so we've got to respect that.
Wow.
There we are.
Terrific. Even the Farage photo opportunities were familiar.
Just let it settle a bit for the picture.
Yeah, no problem.
Wouldn't a second referendum on Brexit, I suggested, settle the issue for once and for all?
We're going to start giving that. It'll never settle the issue with career politicians and Goldman Sachs. They'd go for a third referendum. They would never, ever give up.
You would have done the same, though, wouldn't it? You wouldn't have given up. You would have gone for a second referendum.
Yeah, in about 30 years' time.
No, in about 3 years' time.
It would never have, you know as well as I do, had Remain won, there would be no debate about a second referendum of any kind at all.
Later at Bolton Wanderers football ground, a lineup of Farage and the former Brexit Secretary David Davis attracted long queues. Briefly, madam, why have you come?
For a day out.
For a day out? Why have you come, sir?
I've come because I want to hear what they're going to say about the Brexit and want to find out how we're going to push it forward and get it through.
Okay, thank you. Why have you come, sir?
Leave means leave. Got to stand up for it.
Why have you come?
Because we want out of the EU.
The coup for leave was getting David Davis only 2 days after European leaders rejected Theresa May's Chequers plan in Salzburg. What do you make of Salzburg?
To go.
Well, rudeness and discourtesy are not the signs of great men, put it that way.
But and the Prime Minister's speech yesterday? You must have admired her for standing up to the Europeans.
It was entirely understandable. I mean, I had a great deal of sympathy for her.
After 2 years trying to achieve Brexit as a minister, then resigning, Davis was now back on the platform with Farage.
Disrespect our Prime Minister, and you disrespect our country.
Damn.
Disrespect the decisions of the British people, Mr. Macron, and you disrespect our democracy.
He's not wrong.
Yeah, he isn't. If you think you can bully our country, all I can do is recommend you read some history.
Today is the rebirth of the People's
I'm really
Army
happy for the
that gave
British.
us Brexit.
This was the first of many such rallies planned by the Brexit camp at a time when the Remain side are rallying too.
Well, Michael joins us live now. From Bolton, you're wandering to Liverpool and the Labour Party conference. What's afoot there?
Well, indeed. I mean, we just get a sense right now that the two armies that fought the referendum campaign 2 summers ago, Remain and Leave, are sort of regrouping right now. We saw that here in Bolton today with Farage and Davis and Kate Hoey. And tomorrow lunchtime in Liverpool, the People's Vote campaign, consisting, of course, largely of former Remainers, will be holding a rally there, which includes, on the Bolton theme, by the way, the former Bolton and Everton footballer Peter Reid. And they are pressing this week in Liverpool at the Labour conference for Labour to stiffen its position on this whole question of whether there ought to be a second vote, a referendum, if you like, on the final Brexit deal. They've been buoyed by the fact that over the summer unions have moved a bit in that direction, notably the big GMB union, but also local constituency parties have been putting forward motions for the conference, wanting to talk about Brexit, pushing forward the idea of this people's vote on the final deal. Although in the last couple of days, both Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell, the Shadow Chancellor, have made it clear that the real policy is to get a general election and for Labour to come in and bring about Brexit on Labour's terms rather than on the government's terms. But we will get a Brexit debate this week, and rather a bigger one than last year.
Wow.
So, a little bit of a Brexit update. Basically, now is the second battle for Brexit. You wait. You just wait. They're going to push for a second referendum. They're going to push as hard as possible. It probably won't work.
Well, of course
all right. Oh, Nelly, audience. We got to come home, and coming home means we have to sit through long. Like, long cat is long.
Ooh.
But, you know what? At least Mike Pompeo's not boring.
Oh, thank goodness. All right. So, do you want to set this one up?
You know, honestly, they ask him a bunch of questions. These next 2 clips are a really good example of how... we're going to watch 2 different interviews, okay? We're going to watch Mike Pompeo with Fox News, and then we're going to watch CNN with Nikki Haley. And let me tell you, like, the Fox News interview is not exactly friendly, but it's not exactly hostile. But the interviewer asks some tough questions, and it's interesting to watch Mike Pompeo squirm. Like, he just kind of like has some interesting like tactics in conversations to, you know, move out of the line of fire. You'll see what I mean.
All right, let's get started on this. I like this.
President Trump heads to the United Nations tomorrow to spend the week meeting with world leaders. On his plate, North Korea, China, and Iran. Ahead of this trip, we went to the State Department yesterday to discuss global tensions with Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Mr. Secretary, welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
It's great to be with you, Chris.
This week, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un talked about dismantling missile test sites, nuclear fuel facilities. President Trump called it very positive.
We had very good news from North Korea, South Korea. They met, and we had some great responses. We're making tremendous progress with respect to North Korea.
But the North Koreans have not agreed to give up a single missile, a single nuclear weapon, nor are they giving us the inventory of their arsenal. Is that tremendous progress?
You have to step back to where we began this administration with a well-developed program inside of North Korea. We have now achieved the ceasing of missile testing, the ceasing of nuclear testing. We have gotten the remains of 55 Americans. We're in deep discussions about how to proceed with respect to denuclearization. President Moon traveled to Pyongyang for the third time this past week and made progress. We're continuing to make progress. These are all the right steps forward. It's the right path. And we've made clear to the world that the economic sanctions, the pressure that has caused Chairman Kim to come as far as he has come to date, will remain in effect until denuclearization occurs. And so we're hard at it. President Trump has given me the task to use our entire diplomatic team to achieve the outcome that the world has demanded through UN Security Council resolutions. We'll talk a lot about that in the week ahead in New York.
But again, you talked about denuclearization. They haven't given up a single nuclear weapon or missile or an inventory. And now they're talking in the meeting, the summit with South Korean President Moon, they talked about, quote, corresponding measures, such as a treaty to end the Korean War. One, is that on the table? And two, whatever happened to the position of the administration that North Korea has to get rid of all of its arsenal before we give any concessions?
Administration's position hasn't changed one jot from the time we entered this discussion.
Not one bit.
We are working diligently to achieve many of the outcomes that you described. We've had extended conversations about this. I don't want to get into the details of the negotiations that are underway, but we've talked about particular facilities, particular weapon systems. Those conversations are underway, and we are hopeful that we can deliver this outcome for the world.
But to get to this point about corresponding measures, you say the position hasn't changed one bit. Does that mean they have to get rid of their entire nuclear arsenal and missiles before we give concessions, for instance, a peace treaty?
Everybody's got their own deal. What a concession might be. Some thought it was a concession for President Trump to go to Singapore. I certainly didn't think so. President Trump doesn't. But what we've made clear is the economic sanctions, the driving force to achieve the outcome we're looking for, will not be released. The UN Security Council will not reduce those sanctions until such time as we've achieved that final denuclearization.
I want to pick up on that because the South Koreans are already talking about renewing economic relations with South Korea. The Russians and the Chinese are looking the other way. There's been apparently rampant smuggling of oil, fuel into South Korea. Isn't the U.S. policy of maximum pressure on North Korea, isn't that releasing its grip?
Right now? Absolutely not. I mean, I've read what you should be very careful about everything that you read in the press around the world. The entire UN Security Council remains committed to enforcing the UN Security Council resolutions. I am confident we will renew that and renew the commitments to that in the week ahead. It's one of the things we'll talk a great deal about. To a country, every nation has told me personally they remain committed to enforcing the UN Security Council resolution.
Let's turn to China, where we are on the verge of a major trade war. The U.S. has imposed sanctions or tariffs on $250 billion of Chinese imports. The Chinese have retaliated. They have just announced they're pulling out of a new round of trade talks this week. How hard is President Trump prepared to go in this face-off with China, and for how long?
We know this much. The trade war by China against the United States has been going on for years. Here's what's different in this administration. To the extent one wants to call this a trade war, we are determined to win it. You know, I ran a small business in Kansas before I came to Congress. I saw how companies were treated differently when they attempted to do business, whether they were trying to sell goods into China or to purchase goods, to export from China. I watched how American companies were treated unfairly, differently, a different set of rules. If they wanted to invest in my business in Kansas, they could have. Had I wanted to invest in a Chinese supplier there, I couldn't. These are fundamentally unfair. The American people know that, and President Trump's going to fix it.
When you say you're going to win it.
Yeah, we're going to win it.
As long as it takes?
We're going to win it. We're going to get an outcome which forces China to behave in a way that if you want to be a power, a global power, transparency, rule of law, you don't steal intellectual property, the fundamental principles of trade around the world, fairness, reciprocity, those are the things President Trump has told his counterpart there, who he very much likes.
Never thought
those are the things the American people are demanding and the American workers deserve.
President Trump announced this week that he's reducing the number of refugees that will be allowed into this country from 45,000 this year to 30,000 next year, which would be the lowest cap since the refugee program began in 1980. Now, take, for instance, Syria. There are 5 million Syrian refugees now in the Middle East. The U.S. has allowed only 60 Syrian refugees into this country this fiscal year, which ends next week. Is that this administration's idea of compassion?
Chris, this country has been the most generous nation in all of recorded civilization with respect to taking refugees from around the world and admitting people from outside of the United States. It continues to be so under President Trump and will be during our administration. Let's talk about the refugees in Syria. The best place for those refugees to go back to would be to their homes. It's where they want to go. We've provided billions of dollars in aid, in humanitarian aid all around the world in the Trump administration. And we've let in over 4 million people to our country over the past 2 decades. This is a generous nation. To focus just on this legal term refugees, on this notion of refugees, doesn't encompass the full scope of American generosity. Second point, President Trump is also committed to making sure America is secure. And the vetting that's taking place is important. It reduces risk in the American homeland. And then finally, the work that we've done to get our allies to share this burden. We now have hundreds of $millions of coming in from Gulf states to support Syrian reconstruction and redevelopment, things that never happened. This was good work, driven by the president, led by American diplomacy, to get other countries to share the burden of making sure that these refugees are well taken care of.
New subject. This week, the president ordered the release of previously classified documents about the Russia investigation. That release has been delayed, at least temporarily, but he says they show that the Russia probe began as a hoax.
It's a terrible witch hunt, and it's hurt our country. And the things that have been found over the last couple of weeks about text messages back and forth are a disgrace to our nation.
You were CIA director until just this May. Did you see any legitimate reason to investigate ties between any Trump associates and the Kremlin? Did you see any legitimate basis to surveil Carter Page?
I've consistently said I'm not going to talk about the investigation. I had the role of CIA director, and so I don't have anything to add to that today.
But can you tell us whether or not it was a hoax or whether there were legitimate national security concerns?
Oh, I've been very clear. We have real risk to outside agents trying to do harm to America. There's no mistake about that. There are many countries seeking to meddle in our elections. The Chinese, the Iranians, the North Koreans, and certainly what the Russians did in 2016 are all clear indications that there are those who want to undermine American democracy, and we have an obligation, both the intelligence community, our military, our diplomats, all of the U.S. government, to prevent that from ever happening.
Finally, there was an attack on a military parade in Iran this weekend in which at least 24 people were killed, and your Iranian counterpart, Foreign Minister Zarif, blames it on the U.S. Did the U.S. play any role in that attack? And do you have any plans, or does the president have any plans, to meet with Iranian officials this next week at the UN General Assembly?
Well, let me take your second question first. I don't know that there are any plans to date. The president's been pretty clear. If there are constructive conversations to be had with the Iranians, the president is happy to have them. He'd be willing to do so.
Even with President Rouhani this week?
The leader of the country is the Ayatollah Khamenei. That's who's running the show in Iran. I think that would be an important and interesting conversation.
With respect to, I mean, is that talk, or are you just saying the president would like to meet with the Ayatollah?
The president said he'll talk with anyone if we can have a constructive conversation. We want Iran to stop being the world's largest state sponsor of terror. But make no mistake about it, there's no indication that they have any intent of doing this. Just this past couple weeks, they've come after American interests inside of Iraq, in Basra, and in Baghdad. And with respect to the attacks overnight, I saw the comments of Zarif. When you have a security incident at home, blaming others is an enormous mistake. And the loss of innocent lives is tragic. And I wish Zarif would focus on keeping his own people secure rather than causing insecurity all around the world.
Mr. Secretary, thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Good luck this next week at the UN.
Thank you, sir.
Man, that was a good one. Holy.
It's a lot of shit.
No, man, like every turn Pompeo was able to just turn it around.
Yep.
I will say this, for being such a long interview, like, the questions were really fast. They went through it really quick.
Well, I mean, it had to have been edited, of course, but...
Yeah. All right, so where are we at here? I think it's time to hear from Ben Shapiro's spirit animal.
Spirit animal?
Who's that?
Nikki Haley.
Ooh.
Notice the difference in the art in the interviewing style, because Mike Pompeo was on Fox, Nikki Haley is on CNN. Now watch and see how it goes.
I want to get to all those important foreign policy questions in a second, but first, I do have to ask. President Trump began attacking Professor Blasey Ford, suggesting that since Ford did not report the assault to law enforcement immediately after it occurred, it probably didn't happen. Senator Susan Collins, Republican of Maine, responded to that by saying this.
Ask our real questions, will you denounce Trump right here?
I was appalled by the president's tweet. We know that allegations of sexual assault are one of the most unreported crimes
and apologizing
that
for
exist.
not doing anything
So
wrong.
I thought that the president's tweet was completely inappropriate and wrong.
Madam Ambassador, what was your response?
Well, first of all, I'm getting ready for 140 heads of states and delegations at the UN, so I have not been as Kavanaugh focused as some of you may have. What I've said very clearly is
Senator,
every accuser always deserves the right to be heard. But at the same time, I think the accused deserves the right to be heard. I think that's going to happen, which is great. The Senate has a huge responsibility here. They have to make sure it's fair. They have to make sure it's responsible, and they have to take the politics out. And for the good of both families, I think they have to do this swiftly and quickly, and they have to do it with a lot of care. And so with that, we don't know what the truth is 35 years ago, but we'll find out. And I think that's the best thing we can do, is just hear from both sides and then take it from there.
Let me remove Kavanaugh from the equation, remove Ford from the equation. Just as a general principle, do you think it's fair for someone to suggest that if a person, a woman or a young girl, didn't go to the police when an alleged attack actually happened, then the attack likely didn't occur? Is that a message that you're comfortable with?
The message I'm comfortable with is that accusers go through a lot of trauma, and some handle it one way and some handle it the other way. Regardless, it's not something that we want to do to blame the accuser or to try and second guess the accuser. I think we don't know the situation she was going through 35 years ago. We don't know the circumstances. I think she's going to get the opportunity to say that. But, you know, what I've said often is she deserves respect. She deserves to be heard. Kavanaugh, who's been accused, deserves to be heard. And I think we'll get all our answers next week.
Let's turn to foreign policy. The Iranian regime is blaming other nations, including the United States, for a terrorist attack on Saturday, where gunmen killed at least 29 people at a military parade. Iranian President Hassan Rouhani said earlier today, quote, "It is America who supports these little mercenary countries in the region. It is Americans who are provoking them. It is Americans who provide them with their required necessities to perpetrate such crimes. The government is ready to counter any action by the U.S., and the Americans will regret this." Rouhani's going to be in New York this coming week. Are President Trump and Rouhani going to meet? And what does the president plan to say about these allegations?
Well, we will welcome Rouhani like we welcome all other heads of state. But I think that, again, what you're seeing is you've got a lot of rhetoric coming from Rouhani. The United States condemns any terrorist attack anywhere, period. We've always stood by that. I think what Rouhani needs to do is he needs to look at his own home base. He's got the Iranian people are protesting. Every ounce of money that goes into Iran goes to his military. He has oppressed his people for a long time, and he needs to look at his own base to figure out where that's coming from. I think the Iranian people have had enough, and that's where all of this is coming from. But having said that, he can blame us all he wants. The thing he's got to do is look in the mirror.
Well, speaking of looking at one's own home base, the president's attorney, Rudy Giuliani, appeared at an Iranian opposition event in New York last night and said that U.S. sanctions could lead to a successful revolution in Iran. According to Reuters, Giuliani said, quote, "I don't know when we're going to overthrow them, but it's going to happen." What are the Iranians supposed to think when one of the president's closest advisors is out there saying that there's going to be regime change in Iran?
Listen, Rouhani's closest advisors have not said anything kind about the United States. This is what happens. I mean, there is no love for Iran here in the United States, and there's no love for the United States in Iran. And both sides are going to go back and forth. At the end of the day, what we've said is Iran had a terrible deal in the fact that they were getting hundreds of billions of dollars. They were continuing to do ballistic missile testing. They were continuing to support terrorism, and they were continuing to sell arms. Every conflict that we have, we see Iran's fingerprints, whether it's in Yemen, whether it's in Iraq, whether we're looking at what's happening in Syria. The goal of what we want to try and do is make sure that we defeat ISIS. We will do that. We want to get the Iranian influence out. We're trying to do that. And we want to make sure that we hold Iran to account. They're going to come up with a lot of different things, but at the end of the day, Iran is not a good actor, and they've got a lot of soul searching to do, and the international community needs to hold them to account.
So how seriously should they take it, the Iranians, when they hear the president's close advisor, Rudy Giuliani, saying there's going to be regime change?
Look, the United States is not looking to do regime change in Iran. We're not looking to do regime change anywhere. What we are looking to do is protect Americans, protect our allies, and make sure that we do everything we can to stop it. And the president has been very strong on Iran. He's been very strong that we can't turn away from them, that they are a bad actor. And you'll continue to see him strong in terms of every action we take from there. Iran's economy has plummeted because the president pulled out of the deal. They're getting desperate, and I think we're seeing the actions of that.
President Trump is preparing to meet tomorrow with South Korean President Moon to discuss North Korea. The president said this week there's been, quote, tremendous progress on North Korea. In July, Secretary of State Pompeo told the Senate that North Korea was still making nuclear material. Now, I know North Korea has halted missile and nuclear tests. They didn't have missiles in their parade. But can you point to any concrete steps that the regime has taken to actually denuclearize?
Well, I think, first of all, it is a major step that they're not testing. That's no small feat. All through 2017, we were constantly seeing ballistic missile tests. The fact that they've stopped that, the fact that the two leaders in Korea both shook hands and said they want to denuclearize and they want peace, that's no small thing. I think the fact that their parade, they didn't show off nuclear weapons for the first time, is a major accomplishment. But look, we are far from reaching the end of this. And I think what we want to focus on is denuclearization with verification. We have to both make sure that North Korea knows what we mean by denuclearization. We've got to make sure we enforce sanctions, because that's what brought them to the table in the first place. And I think that's what we're going to continue to do.
This week, the administration cut the number of refugees that the U.S. would accept in 2019 to 30,000. That's the lowest level in 40 years. Now, I know you've made working with refugees a priority. Did you sign off on this decision to reduce the number to 30,000, and do you support the cut?
We all gave our own opinions on what we thought that number should be, and at the end of the day, there's a National Security Council process that goes through that. This is what I'll tell you is the United States is the most generous to refugees of any country in the world. I mean, like you said, I've been to see the Syrian refugees in Jordan and Turkey. I've been to Ethiopia. I've been to the Democratic Republic of Congo. And the United States does all we can to make sure that we're taking care of refugees closest to home, because never did I hear any refugees say we want to go to America. They want to go back home. And so we'll continue to do that. The fact that the cap was reduced on the number that come into the United States is such a small small part of the refugee conversation. The refugee conversation is, how do we support these refugees going home? How do we support political solutions so the conflicts go away? And what are we going to continue to do going forward? And I think the United States is going to continue to be the most generous country in the world when it comes to refugees.
Ambassador, let's take Syria, for instance, and what you're talking about here in terms of the priority being to get the refugees back home. In August, the Trump administration cut more than $200 million that it was providing for stabilization assistance to reconstruct and rebuild Syria. How does that help refugees return to their homes in Syria at the same time the United States is cutting the number of refugees that we are admitting here at home?
Jake, we have made it very clear we are not going to pay for reconstruction of Syria as long as there's Iranian influence there. We're not going to pay for reconstruction as long as ISIS has not been defeated, which we're almost there. We're not going to pay for reconstruction to help Russia out when this is their problem. I mean, what we're saying is there's a lot of things that have to happen before reconstruction is even talked about. And it's not just going to be the U.S. Other countries have to weigh in. But right now, you've got a very sensitive situation in Syria. And Russia has to step up. They took responsibility for this. They've got to manage it. They can't sit there and do whatever they want, allowing the Iranians to continue to have influence when they're the biggest sponsor of terrorism, and then turn around and have their hand out and asking us for money in return.
United Nations Ambassador Nikki Haley, we always enjoy you coming here. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks so much, Jake.
Thanks so much, Fake.
Well, they got to at least put on the face. You know how. Otherwise, they won't come back. So let's switch gears. We keep hearing people talk about Kavanaugh. We've been beating around the bush the entire goddamn episode, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, let's throw the audience a curveball, and let's hear some opinions from Dean Cain about Kavanaugh's Me Too accuser.
Well, a group of actors in Los Angeles, deeply informed by spending over an hour on Twitter, have banded together to produce a video supporting Christine Ford and demanding a halt to Brett Kavanaugh's confirmation of Supreme Court. Watch.
I got my degree on Twitter.
We know how difficult it is to stand up to powerful people. He should not be confirmed.
He should not be confirmed.
He should not be confirmed.
Do not confirm him.
I don't know any of those people. You probably don't either. Dean Cain does, though. He's an actor and producer. He's from Los Angeles. His dad was in the business. He joins us tonight. What do you make of that?
Oof. Wow. Look, sexual assault, I feel for any victim, for sure. Sexual assault, no question, male or female. But that is just completely...
Like, what do you make of that?
Where's the video for Karen Monahan? You know, Keith Ellison's accuser. Where's the full-length movie for the Bill Clinton accusers? It just doesn't exist. It's completely political.
Piece of internet history, just in case you guys didn't know. Are you guys familiar with He Will Not Divide Us?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So Dean Cain has some He Will Not Divide Us history. Are you guys familiar with it?
No.
No, not at all.
Oh, man,
enlighten us.
Gather round, children. Basically, during the He Will Not Divide Us stuff during the early days, Shia LaBeouf had put up a webcam on the outside of an art museum.
Oh,
and above it said, "He will not divide us." He was out there chanting, "He will not divide us." It basically turned into the greatest reality TV show of all time. It was I think it was up for like a week or something like that before it got taken down. But it was just meme stream 24/7. So,
all the Bane posting in real life.
Oh,
it was the most cancerous live stream I've ever seen in my entire life.
One of the most epic things I've ever seen, which is interesting because, like, you know, Steven Crowder is kind of mediocre, was he decided to live stream his show from the He Will Not Divide Us webcam. And he interviewed Dean Cain on the He Will Not Divide Us webcam.
Nice.
Damn it.
So Dean Cain was immortalized in internet history for all time.
Nice.
Thank you for screwing yourself, Shia LaBeouf.
And yes, we did track him everywhere he was.
And that's kind of tragic because sexual assault is a very serious thing, and it kind of cheapens it because they're doing this specifically for political reasons.
Well, it's such a good point. I mean, these are not standards they apply equally. So Kermit Gosnell was an abortion doctor in Philadelphia who killed a bunch of viable children, right, but also abused all these women. People tried to make a movie about it in Los Angeles, and not everyone was on board. You actually did make the movie about it. What was the reaction?
Well, first of all, we had to raise the money on Indiegogo because nobody would pay for it. We did that, and we made the film, and I think it's a very good film. It comes out October 12th, and nobody would put it out there. Nobody would distribute it. So we finally found distribution. So 2 years ago, we finished the film. Now we can tell the story, and it's because it deals with abortion. We couldn't even buy ad time on NPR because we called him an abortion doctor. We had to call him just a doctor. So nobody wants to touch it.
All he did was commit abortion. I mean, he wasn't doing appendectomies.
No, he was also pushing drugs and got busted on a narcotics charge. That's how it started. But this guy was.
Are you worried about? I mean, that's one subject that you're kind of not allowed to deviate from the prevailing view. Are you concerned?
No.
For yourself?
I wonder if this is coming on.
You know, I'm of a certain age now where I'm not that concerned about. I'm going to tell stories that I want to tell. I'm not worried about if it has a repercussion on my job or my hiring. It should never do that to tell stories. And we're telling a true story. This happened. I play a real-life detective, James Wood, and this happened. And the way we tell the story, we don't take a side on it. I actually am pro-choice, which shocks people to a degree up until viability of a child. Then I can't. I would never abort my own child. I would never want that, but I'm not going to tell somebody what they can do with their body. And that surprised a lot of people that I would make this film. But I think the film is hugely important and should get out there, and people should make up their own minds.
Man, I hope that all of our viewers watch this movie. I'm going to watch the movie, and I think
from a lot of people that are into really healthy debates tonight,
by the way, because that is everybody who spent a lot of time living in liberal America, where I live and where you live. You know, that's the one subject you can't have your own views on.
No, absolutely not.
Well, good for you, Dean Cain. It is great to see you.
Thanks, Doug.
Wow.
Nice.
Okay, so we're going to continue our dose of Tucker with a double upload.
Double.
And we're going to continue. Tucker has more to say about Christine Ford. The clip that we just watched was from, I believe, I think it was before this clip. I'm pretty sure. Pretty sure? Not 100%. Either way, we played it first because it was shorter. We needed a little bit of a palate cleanse.
We'll find out. No.
Brett Kavanaugh's Supreme Court nomination. It remains in suspended animation tonight, thanks, as you well know, to allegations that he assaulted a psychology professor called Christine Blasey Ford some 36 years ago, while both of them were still in high school. Despite blanket media coverage, the basic details of that story remain murky. Ford has not said when or where it happened precisely. She has said she didn't tell a soul about it for 3 decades. There are significant inconsistencies in her account, but we have never doubted Ford's sincerity, and we have never questioned her motives. And unless we learn new facts that give us reason to, we won't do that. We give her every benefit of every doubt. But there's another side to the story as well. Brett Kavanaugh, he's also got a family and a career and a reputation, and all have been gravely damaged by these claims. Now, Democrats could have helped clear this up weeks ago if they had asked Kavanaugh about Ford's story as he sat before them for days in the U.S. Senate. That's what hearings are for. But they didn't do that. Instead, they hid what they knew in order to cause maximum political damage. Now, in the process, they overturned his life, but they also overturned Christine Ford's life. She had asked to remain anonymous. Democrats betrayed her, and they dragged her into the public eye. Now Ford says she's had to leave her home because of threats. Democrats in the Senate did that purely for partisan advantage, and you should keep that in mind the next time they lecture you about how much they care about women. So what happens next? Well, 36 hours ago, Democrats were adamant that Ford get a hearing on Capitol Hill. The nomination couldn't move forward until she did, they told us. It's only fair. Now they are saying precisely the opposite of that. Watch Hawaii Senator Mazie Hirono explain that having Ford testify before the Senate would itself constitute a form of abuse.
I'm totally disappointed that all these people who have come forward to say, oh, we should hear from her, and now that she's expecting a modicum of fairness so she's not re-victimized, are now saying, well, if she doesn't want to testify, we should just go ahead. That is additional callousness from my colleagues that I am totally appalled by.
They're trying to set up a he said, she said scenario and bully her into either testifying on Monday or not being heard at all.
These people in Congress right now in that Senate Judiciary Committee, these white men, old,
by the way, are not protecting women. They're protecting a man who is probably guilty.
Did you catch that last part? Not just men, but old white men. The worst kind, the kind who should be punished just for who they are. If nothing else, the story has opened a window into how many on the left really think it's a tribal worldview where people are not regarded as individuals with distinct personalities and beliefs and aspirations, but instead as faceless members of ethnic blocs sorted by genes. It's a world where some people are inherently good and some are inherently bad. It's a place where how you're born determines what you're worth. That's what the left now believes. They say so all the time. But remember, you're the Nazi here, so shut up. Well, you either find this brand of hard identity politics disgusting, or you don't. Hillary Clinton is drawn to it like a bear to donuts. She came out of semi-retirement last night to weigh in at length on cable news. Here's how she said the Trump administration ought to respond to the allegations against Brett Kavanaugh. Watch.
The White House could answer it very quickly by asking the FBI to reopen its background check and to take into account the accusation that's been made and to gather the evidence about what can be known. What I think the White House and the Republicans on the committee are trying to do is, basically put her in the dock and try to rush this through.
Now, just pause for a minute and savor this. Imagine you're Hillary Clinton. Imagine saying something like that. You'd have to believe that the internet doesn't exist, that there was no record at all of anything you had ever said in public about claims of sexual abuse. Well, as it happens, we have access to the internet here, as well as a pretty long memory. Hillary Clinton has said an awful lot about sexual assault allegations, credible allegations, including of rape, all of them aimed at her husband Bill, from many women over many years. Hillary sounded a lot different then, like a totally different person. Of course, she was fighting to keep political power, and that gave her another perspective. Watch as Hillary Clinton dismisses and belittles the claims of female abuse survivors.
We're right in the middle of a rather vigorous feeding frenzy right now, and people are saying all kinds of things and putting out rumor and innuendo. It's just a very unfortunate turn of events that we are using the criminal justice system to try to achieve political ends in this country. And I just think that a lot of this is deliberately designed to sensationalize charges against my husband because everything else they've tried has failed. The great story here for anybody willing to find it and write about it and explain it is this vast right-wing conspiracy that has been conspiring against my husband since the day he announced for president.
Oh, how times have changed. One thing that has not changed is the torrent of propaganda from the left. Whenever their control of this country is challenged, they will say literally anything. Jim Sciutto, for example, a former Obama appointee now posing as a journalist over at CNN, summed up today's news this way, quote, "The offer to Christina Blasey Ford is blunt. Testify in public 6 days from now while under death threats, or your allegation will be ignored in the confirmation of a SCOTUS nominee." In other words, says Jim Sciutto, Republicans are jeopardizing Ford's life by asking her to tell her story. Not only is this overwrought and dumb, it's factually wrong. Republicans want Ford to testify because they want to get this over with and vote. That's what you do in a democracy. They've even offered to interview her privately in California. Senator Grassley sent a letter to that effect just recently. Democrats oppose that, of course. They'd like to ride this story into November and beyond. Instead, the left is calling for an FBI investigation. The FBI wants nothing to do with any of this, as we reported on this show last night. So Democrats are now demanding that Trump order the FBI to investigate the story. But investigate what exactly? Where would you start? Ford cannot even state definitively what year this supposedly happened. And by the way, why would the FBI be in charge of the investigation? Nobody's even alleged a federal crime here. If you really wanted justice in this case, you would bring it to the police in Maryland. That's a state with no statute of limitations on sex crimes. How would that end? Well, Ford says Kavanaugh was a juvenile at the time. If evidence of his guilt emerged, would he be tried as a minor? Would his record be sealed afterwards so it wouldn't overshadow his life? If those sound like absurd questions, that's because this whole thing is absurd. The Democrats don't care about Christine Ford. If they did, they wouldn't have outed her in the first place. They care about keeping a Republican off the court, which is fine. But if that's the case, then make the case for why Kavanaugh's ideas are wrong. But don't personally destroy a man simply because he's in the way. That's what they're doing. And the rest of us should stop playing along and say it out loud.
Mr. President, how are you, sir?
Holy
Mr. President,
fuck.
how are you, sir? Yeah, man, it's been a really rough week for politics. Up and down, some good news, some bad news, crazy shit, but it's been entertaining.
Yeah, it's been a crazy week, so
we've only got one clip left, and it's kind of a surprise. No one knew it was going to happen, but at the Trump rally last night... No. Well, I mean, you're fine. At the Trump rally last night, Hannity kind of like just snuck in a surprise interview with Donald Trump, and it was pretty good, actually. So I thought, you know, we don't get that many interviews with Trump. Let's go ahead and watch it and see what he had to say, because I mean, it's kind of unusual.
All right, prepare for the gush fest.
Mr. President,
Gosh.
how are you, sir? It's an honor to see you. Wave to the fake news media.
Hello, folks.
It's great to see you. How are you?
Nice to see you.
You want to sit? You want to stand? What do you want to do?
Stand.
First,
where's your camera? Tell me. Right here?
Yeah, you can look right here. First, you can thank Laura Ingraham, who's given us extra Hannity time tonight.
Well, she's very special, and she's doing well.
You know what? She's doing well. She's a big supporter of yours. But what do you make of where the Kavanaugh hearings are now? There's a new set of demands that have come out.
I think it's a very sad situation. He's an outstanding person. And frankly, Sean, to see what's going on is just very, very sad. You say, why didn't somebody call the FBI 36 years ago? I mean, you could also say, when did this all happen? What's going on? To take a man like this and besmirch. Now, with that being said, let her have her say, and let's see how it all works out. But I don't think you can delay it any longer. They've delayed it a week already. And
you've been very accommodating.
I have been accommodating. I say, let her say what she has to say, and let's see how it all comes out. But they've delayed it a week, and they have to get on with it.
Yeah. Mr. President, you're dealing with a lot of good economic news today. And there's a lot of media people, it seems like all they ever talk about, and John Solomon and Sarah Carter broke a big story tonight.
Great people.
And what they're saying is that even the intelligence community and the FBI didn't want to give the intel to the Obama administration because there were conflicts, and they would weaponize it against you. That's our new information.
Well, I'm not surprised to hear it. If you look at what's been going on over the last couple of years, and I'm not just talking about from the time I won the presidency. This took place when I was winning in the primaries. I mean, you look at what's going on, I'm not surprised to hear anything.
Before the election, after the election, even the media leak strategy. Lisa Page had testified that for 9 months they had no evidence at all whatsoever. But it seems to be coming to an end.
Well, it has to come to an end. It's so bad for our country. I call it the witch hunt. It is so bad for our country. And when you see Strzok and Page and McCabe with his lies, he gets fired for lying. You see all of the things, and Comey for lying and leaking. You see what went on. It's got to come to an end. So bad for our country.
The irony in all of this is I have been uncovering all of this. When you think about it, Clinton bought and paid for, used funneled money, a dossier, foreign national put it together.
A lot of money.
They never verified, they never corroborated, and it was the bulk of information.
You
have now said declassify it and redact it. How soon will that be coming?
Well, we're moving along. We're working along. We're also dealing with foreign countries that do have a problem. I must tell you, I got called today from two very good allies saying, please, can we talk? So it's not as simple as all that. And we do have to respect their wishes, but it'll all come out.
You know what? Elections are about peace and prosperity. Your economic record, I talked about it earlier in the show tonight. Record low unemployment, 14 states, African Americans, Hispanic Americans, women, youth unemployment. We have great news on the economy. Better news with Kim Jong-un. He's not firing rockets over Japan.
Well, with, honestly, Korea, North Korea, South Korea, things are working out very nicely.
Tough sanctions against Russia, and the Iranian economy and the Chinese economy are both going down as you have taken a tough stand.
Well, it's time to take a stand on China. We have no choice. You know, it's been a long time. They've been hurting us, and our farmers are great, and our farmers are starting to do very well again. It's very interesting. But we're putting very, very heavy sanctions and other things on various countries, and we're getting along with some countries. But we've been ripped off, Sean, by the world. all of these countries for years and years, and we can't do it anymore.
So you're getting better deals with Mexico.
We made a good deal with Mexico. Good for both. Good for Mexico. Good for us. Everybody's happy. NAFTA was a disaster. We lost thousands of plants. We lost millions of jobs. NAFTA was a disaster. We've renegotiated it. We're in the process of working now on Canada. We'll see what happens with Canada. Canada's been tough. They charge 300% tariffs on dairy products. Our farmers, no good. You can't do that. So we'll probably be able to. We'll see what happens.
I know.
By the way, it'll work out well anyway. Go ahead.
I'll ask one last question because there's a lot of people in this arena waiting for you, as you can see. I'll ask one final question.
Amazing people.
47 days from now is the midterm elections. 47 days. We know what the agenda of the Democrats are. They want to go after you. They want endless investigations. They want to keep Obamacare. They want to eliminate ICE. They want open borders. They want the crumbs back, your tax cuts. And my question is, the question that every American ought to ask is, are we better off than we were 2 years ago? What do you say to those people that love you, but maybe aren't so hot on their Republican House or Senate member?
You got to go out and vote. We need more Republicans. We'll get everything we want. We need more Republicans. You want to protect your Second Amendment. You want to protect everything. You want to protect all of the great success that you've had over the last little more now than a year and a half. Think of it. We're coming up, can you believe it?
Right.
2 years when you and I started talking.
Actually,
this is what happened.
When you came down the escalator.
Well, yeah, if you talk about the campaign itself. But I will say this. You've got to protect. Look at what's going on with the Supreme Court. If we're not there, because we're all together as a group, if we're not there to protect, it is going to be some really bad day for this country. So we're protecting. But we made tremendous gains. You know, the stock market today, it's a good day to do an interview because the stock market today hit the highest level in its history. Today. Now, did you work this interview out specifically for that? But it was up very big today, but it hit the highest, all of the markets. Today hit the highest level. Now, 401ks are up 57% in a short period of time. If the Democrats get in, those numbers will be cut in half. You will see bad things.
Obama never made, the only president in history that never made 3% GDP growth in a year. All right, the budget negotiations, are you going to demand, you challenge Republicans, fund the wall completely? Will you insist on it?
We're getting $1.6 billion. We're continuing. We spent $3.2 billion. We're continuing to build the wall. I'd like to do it. I could do it so quickly. I'd like to do it in one piece. The Democrats are holding us back. I am told by Republican leadership, and I hope they do it because there are a lot of people counting. See the people with the wall? I want the wall too.
Yeah. They got it down.
That they will do it immediately after the election. We've got $1.6 billion. A lot of money, but not when it comes to building.
You've already got $3 billion you spent.
We've got $3.2 billion. It's being built. We've got $1.6 billion. But we have to do much better than that because we can do it very quickly. And you know the bottom line? We need it. The Democrats, they want open borders. They want people coming in. That means crime. We're the opposite. You got to have a border. You don't have a border, you don't have a country. You know that.
Security. Securing our children. It's about, and you want a door in your wall.
Oh, it's going to have lots of doors. People are going to come in, but they're going to come in through merit. And they have to come in because we have companies moving in from all over the world. They're coming back to the United States. The biggest companies, Foxconn, the biggest companies in the world are coming back. We need people, but they have to come in through merit.
Yeah. Mr. President, thank you. And
thank you.
Can you thank Laura again? She's probably going to be mad at me.
Laura, I love your show. I watch it all the time. And you know what? You are special. You really are. It's a good combination.
Thank you, Mr. President. I know this crowd. You ready to hear the president? Thank you, sir. We appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Good job.
Ninja.
Nice. Very good.
We
Very nice. Off the cuff.
So that's not too bad.
It's all going to come out.
Yep. Everything's going to come out in the wash. Well,
everything's going to be fine.
That's pretty much the end of our clip list. Not too bad this week. A little bit rocky. Some good news, some bad news. I think most of it's good news, though. I'm excited to see the EU General, or the UN General Assembly next week. I think we're going to see some big announcements that week.
Oh yeah, this is going to be an interesting week coming up. Hopefully, hey, are we going to be able to do it? Are we going to be able to go back to our normal time on Friday, or are we?
Do you want to do?
In October, I can do that.
Do you like Sundays?
Sundays are working out pretty well for me. I mean, I'm enjoying it.
Let's keep doing Sundays for a while. If we need to change it, we can change it down the road.
All right. Damn it, notes. I gotta make a new overlay.
Working, let's change it.
Word.
All
right. Figure it out.
So a couple things to address. On the QAnon front, we don't talk about that very often.
We're talking about this. We are.
Yeah. Well, no, just a little bit. Just a slight bit.
Do you have a tinfoil? I'm just kidding.
No. We're not even talking about theory crafting or anything like that. We're doing a little bit of housekeeping. I mean, my name is on the podcast, so we might as well say, if you're having trouble getting to the subverse is V/capital Q capital R capital V. That's Quebec Romeo Victor. If you're having trouble with the warning message when you go in, that's because you need to go into your profile settings and you need to tick off the explicit content, the NSFW filter. Now, I want to be completely transparent since my name is on that subverse. My activities here in this podcast are not affiliated with my activities in other places. And that being said, to make sure that I do not fall prey to the, dare I say, fame faggotry that we've had to deal with, this podcast is going to remain free. We just like doing it.
Yeah.
I like doing it. You like doing it. It's fun. We learn a lot. And I'm learning how to do some production stuff. So it's a win-win for us. And it's a fun way to interact with the rest of the community. So we look forward to seeing you guys every week, those of you that show up, and hopefully some new people down the road. That being said, all that stuff will be on the website. Expect that the Discord server is going to be moved next week. So what we're going to do is I'm going to put up an announcement on Thursday on the Discord, and we're going to announce that we're moving to the new server. The reason that we're moving is because our previous server owner, got banned. So our current server that we're on does not have an owner. So we need to move to a server that does have an owner. So we've got all that set up. We have a holder account and everything else. So we should be good on that front. Like I said, we'll put out the announcement on Thursday. Open up the floodgates on Friday. Monday, we will be closing the QCA backup server. So if you miss out on the move, go ahead and check the website. We'll be updating that invite link after we make our move. Probably updating it on Friday or Saturday. And just keep an eye on the website for changes. Things are in a real fluid state right now, but we'll always try to reach out and keep you guys up to date.
Absolutely. All right.
So I think that's pretty concise. I'm a little worried, I guess,
good.
maybe.
That was good. It was good, I would say. You did good.
Oh, man. It's been such a long day.
Yeah.
I get to go play Spider-Man soon.
Right? Bringing it in 360 around here. Oh, man. All right.
You know me. I always got to beat that dead thing with a stick.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of beating dead things with a stick. Thank you all for coming out tonight, staying in with us, listening, joining us, all that good stuff.
Crystal Light.
As we listen to people discuss music. Not discuss music. I'm an idiot. That was a different one. We discuss the news. Let's discuss the news here, man. Oh, man. Y'all be sure to buy water. There you go. There's that dead horse, man. There's that dead horse.
Yeah, but it doesn't taste like a dead horse.
At least get some, like, Crystal Light drops, man. Fuck.
Straight from the tap. All the fluoride. Come get me, Alex Jones. Come get me.